Hello guys, so we saw how we can perform different DML queries using their appropriate queries. By appropriate queries I mean if you want to insert, you have to explicitly write an insert into employee statement. If you want to do an update employee. If you want to delete from, to perform those DML queries. And then there is also a way you can still achieve the same thing but with a select statement. In Java that is called an updatable ResultSet. So I'm going to show you how you can perform a delete operation without having to explicitly write delete from employee as an SQL query, just using a ResultSet. First of all, if I can compare this delete and this particular statement, we see that here we are just getting connection using a create statement, and we don't pass anything to the create statement. That's the first thing you must observe. We pass two parameters, the mode of traversing and whether the result set is updatable or not. So we see that as we saw in the slide, we have type scroll sensitive, type scroll insensitive, and forward only, and we have already explained there. This is the first parameter. The second parameter, read only and updatable. So I just wanted to remind you of that before we continue. So from what we see now, let me just go to the database, and so I just refreshed. We have 4 rows. So based on this current SQL statement, we see that we are reading our database in updatable mode, and we can't read. We can only traverse in one direction, the result set. So what we should be able to achieve with this code is that we read the first, we take the pointer of the result set, or the cursor as it is called, to the first row of the result set. Then we delete that row. And because we have 4 rows here, it means this row will be returned, would be given first. Why am I saying it will be given in this order? Remember, our ID is a primary key, and primary key automatically creates an index for us, which means when you retrieve the list, they will be returned in the order of this primary key. So they will be returned in this order. So we are going to delete the first row because our cursor pointed to the first row for us. So this print util method, all that it does, it just print all the rows, iterate through them. So we should be able to get 3. When we run this code, we should be able to get how many? 3 rows. As we can see, we are able to get 3 rows. If we were to change this to read only, guess what's going to happen? We are going to get an error because our result set is read only. This is the error we are getting. You can't update a result set that is read only. So let's go back to what we have. So this means now we can also do something like this, while, which will ideally delete everything from the thing, such that when we execute this statement, we don't have anything left for us anymore. So let's just run this code and see. As you can see, everything was deleted because we kept on iterating and deleting the row. I'm just gonna run this SQL statement to insert the data back again for us. Okay, Let's see, the data is back again. So we saw that we were able to delete the row using this. So it means if you do this 2 times, you will delete the first 2 the second row. So sorry, if you do this, I'm just gonna copy this out and put it here. We don't need to do a check because we already know that a row exists. I'm just gonna format this code quickly. We already know that a row exists. So if we do this code, we are putting our cursor to the second row that is returned in the result set, and we delete that particular row. And which row is that? Let's see. This is the row. So that means our code must give us 31, 33, 34 when we run it based on this SQL. Let's run it and see. Okay, 30. Okay, let me see. 33, 34. 33, 34. Okay, let's go back. 31, 33, 34. 31, 30. Okay, so let's run it again. So the expectation here is we take the cursor to the first, we then take the cursor to the second, then we delete that row, which ideally should mean that the first one should still be there. So let's see our data. We are expecting to delete 33. Okay, let's run it again and observe what we get here. Okay, 34, we get 34. Oh, yes. The reason being that since I see what was happening here, guys. I'm sorry. So what I'm gonna do, I'm just gonna do this so that I can explain. So we learn by example. There's something that really slipped my mind that I want to highlight. All right, this is okay. So what was happening is that I'm just going to insert the data again. What's happening here is that, so let's check the data again. We do have it like this. We are deleting this row 36, but the data that will come back to us is 37, 38 based on the code that we have here. I will explain why. Let's run the code and I will explain it. You see, get 37, 38. 36 is deleted. Yes. So the reason we don't get the first one is because the result set is pointing to the row after the row that was deleted, and hence the first row we are not considering because our print statement just continues. It just says next. That's why we do not get it the previous row. So let me go back to what we have, that if statement, and explain some few things. So this is fine. Then what I want to do now, we saw that we were not able to print everything even after we have deleted that particular row that we wanted to delete. So basically, if we do this, okay, let me just say I want to explain something to make sense. Okay, we have formatted the code. We are deleting the second row. So how many do we have now? All right, so we are deleting the second row, but we still want to display everything. So what should we do? We should now move the cursor back to the first row in the result set. So how can we do that? We can use this method absolute. It will put the cursor next to the first row as is, or we can use another method called before first. All right, so let's use this one and see what's going to happen. This is going to give us an exception, but the row will be deleted, but we'll still get an exception because of this line of code. And since we are not in a transactional environment, this exception will not roll back the deleted row. So basically what we want to do here, 37 will be removed, but we will still have an exception. Okay, let's check. 37 is removed. We do have an exception. The exception is appearing because here we are trying to do what the result set is not allowing us. The result set can only allow us to move the cursor in a forward direction on. That means we can't go backward. Hence this error that we are having here. So if we want to have that behavior, we need to say type scroll sensitive. Then we can move the cursor. It's sensitive to changes and it can move in any direction. So all right, so what I'm going to do again is I'm going to insert data again. We have inserted the data. Let's see what we have. We have all this. So what we are doing in this query, we are deleting the second row, which is good, this one here, 38, with ID 38, and we want to display everything from 35. So let's see. We see that we deleted 38 and we do have everything back to us. Let me do this. 39. This was not okay. We were on this thing, or we were on this particular row. Yeah, so we are not supposed to get this because we pointed the cursor to row number 1. But when we do the printing, we don't start with printing. We move the cursor. Hence, we skipped that particular row that we were on. So what we can do alternatively, can say before first. We put the cursor before the first element. So with what we have now, we have this. We are going to delete 39 and we put the cursor before 35. Then that means 35 should be on the list now when we run the code. As you can see, 35 is on the list. So when you execute before first, you must be very careful. I'm going to show you what I mean. So if I say print row, so this one, what it does, it doesn't do it doesn't select next. It just print that particular row the current row you are at. So let's see what happens when we do this. We say before first and print next. You see, the reason this one is giving an error is because the cursor is still before the first row. It's not like it's at the first row. It's before the first row. Hence, now you need to call print, which then now takes the cursor to the first row by executing next, which is the next row, and then it gives you the data you are looking at. So we saw how you guys can exploit the delete. So we can use the delete with a result set. Another thing that I want to show is there's another method called relative. So we see how this relative work. Let's say now we have this data. Let's see what data we have. This is the data we have. So what do? We delete. Okay, let's just delete the first row for now. We delete the first row, which is 35. Then after deleting the 35, we move the cursor one step relative to the current row. Then we print. We moved the cursor one step. So let's run this code. We are sure that the first row, which is this one, will be printed. And then after that, we move the cursor to row 1 relative to the current row. So now let's run this code. So we see that we get 42, which is this one, because relative moved from this current row that we have to the other row that we have.